is lube. Today, we are going to be looking at the new Headway Plus intermediate book grammar reference on page 136 and 137. Now, we will start off with the present simple. Mr. Gregory, when would we use the present simple?
We would use present simple for things that are routine or that are always true.
Ah, very good. Now, Mr. Paul,
Yes.
do I have positive and negative here?
So yes, you do.
Aha, so in the positive, when I want to use the word work, how would I make a sentence?
You could say, I work hard.
Yes, you could. Or you could just say, I work. Mr. Gregory, how about if I want to use the word we with work?
We work at Al Jazeera.
Yes, or you could just say we work. Mr. Paul, how would I use the pronoun you with work?
You work.
Aha, perfect. And now, Mr. Gregory, if I want to use the negative with they and the word work, how would I do that?
They don't work.
Yes, they don't work. Perfect. Now, Mr. Paul,
Yes.
do you see a difference in what I would do with the word work when I use he, she, or it in contrast to I, we, or they?
Yes. With the third person, he, she, it, we use the S because we conjugate the verb and we change it to he works, she works, etc.
Perfect. We add the S. He works, she works, and Mr. Gregory, if I use it with the negative for work, how would I do that?
Then we have it doesn't work.
Perfect. As you see, with I, we, you, and they, we use don't work. With he, she, or it, don't becomes doesn't.
Excuse me, teacher. What do we use it for?
If I were to say something like, would this bridge work for a train of a given weight? You could say, yes, it works. The word work and it if you were talking about an animal or a thing. For example, if I dropped a camera into the water and I pulled it right back out of the water afterward, and someone wanted to know whether the camera was broken, they could say, does the camera still work? And I could say, yes, it works, even after it was dropped in the water.
Okay.
Now, when we go through our questions, we're going to be using the word where. Mr. Gregory, how would I make a sentence with where, do, a pronoun, and live? Please give me an example.
Where do they live?
Where do they live? Perfect. Now, Mr. Paul, when I want to use a question in the present simple, and I want to use he, she, or it, what does my do turn into?
Does.
Perfect. Can you give me an example of a question with he, she, or it?
Yes. Where does he live?
Perfect. I can say, where does he live? Where does she live? Where does it live? Any of those would be completely appropriate. Just keep that in mind. If you're saying I, we, you, or they, you would use do. If you're saying he, she, or it, you use does. Now, we have a few examples here of proper usage. Mr. Gregory, can you please read our first example?
Do you live in Bristol?
Yes, we do.
Perfect. And Mr. Paul, can you please read our next example?
Does he have a car? No, he doesn't.
Perfect. So we have we do, he doesn't. We have our example words like doesn't and do utilized in our sentences. Any questions?
No, teacher.
Can we use the questions with other WH questions, like who, what, where, when, why?
Sure. You can say, who do you like?
Okay.
You can say, who does he see? Any of those would be completely appropriate, yes. Now, we have some information on the use of the present simple. We use the present simple to express an action that happens again and again. Mr. Gregory, can you please read our first example?
I go to work by car.
Yes. So what you're saying is, every day,
Yes.
you're going to work by car. It happens day after day, again and again. Mr. Paul, please read our next example.
She drinks 10 cups of coffee a day.
She
Ooh.
drinks 10 cups of coffee a day. She may be some kind of caffeine addict. That's her problem, not mine. But what we're actually saying is that every single day she drinks this many cups of coffee.
Teacher, do you think she probably drinks Turkish coffee or Arabic coffee? Or could it possibly be Nescafe?
We do not have that information. She may
Okay.
drink lattes, may drink Americanos.
This is
may
a lot
drink
of coffee,
muffins.
isn't it? 10 cups of coffee a day.
10 cups does sound unhealthy to me.
Yeah.
Once again, that's her problem, not mine. So, Mr. Gregory, what does our next sentence say here?
I wash my hair twice a week.
Yes, I wash my hair twice a week. So we're saying week after week, again and again, that is my weekly routine, my weekly habit. Now, the present simple can not only be used to express an action that happens again and again, but also a fact that is always true. Mr. Paul,
Yes.
please read our first example here.
Ronaldo comes from Brazil.
Perfect. The soccer player, Ronaldo, comes from Brazil. So, he was born there, that is his home country. It will always be his home country, right? Even if he moves to a foreign country, he will be a Brazilian, right?
Right.
That is always true. Mr. Gregory, please read example 2.
Some birds fly south in winter.
Yes, that's true. Some birds, because of weather patterns, fly south to warmer weather environments. They always do this. It is always true. It is their instinct. Now, Mr. Paul, please read our third example.
My daughter has brown eyes.
Perfect. Yes, my daughter has brown eyes. If someone has eyes of a given color, it is extremely safe to say those eye colors will never change. She will always be my brown-eyed girl. Now, we also use our present simple for a fact that is true for a long time. Mr. Gregory, can you please read our first example?
He works in a bank.
Perfect. He works in a bank. It is safe to say he's been working there for years and years. Banking is a very solid career. Someone like this who works in a bank would probably continue to work in the bank long term. Mr. Paul, can you please read our next example?
I live in a flat near the center of town.
Correct, yes. Generally speaking, your home remains your home for an extended period of time. So when you say, I live in a flat near the center of town, because that is your long-term residence, you would we use the present simple. Mr. Gregory, can you please read our final example?
I prefer coffee to tea.
Yes, outstanding. I prefer coffee to tea. Generally speaking, your preferences regarding food or drinks remain the same long term. You may change your mind about a few things. For example, my favorite food used to be ice cream, but now my favorite food is a candy bar. You may change your mind after a long period of time. Generally speaking, though, your preferences will be the same.
Could you make the bottom part about spelling? Could you make it bigger? Just that bottom part, so we
Oh,
can
the
see it.
verb?
Yeah.
I probably could, yeah.
What about this one? Yes, that is correct. Generally speaking, our preferences regarding food and drink remain the same long term. So if someone says, I prefer coffee to tea, the present simple would be most appropriate. Now, spelling of a verb plus the letter S. We have most verbs add S to the base form of the verb. Now, we have some examples here. Wants, right? To want, you add S. To eat, you add S. To help, you add S. To drive, you add S. You can also add ES to verbs that end with a double S, an SH, a CH, an X, or an O. We have multiple examples here. We have Mrs., washes, watches, fixes, and goes. Now, verbs that end in a consonant plus the letter Y are changed to IES. Here are some examples. Carry becomes carries, fly becomes flies, worry becomes worries, and try becomes tries. The verbs that end in a vowel plus letter Y need to have the word and the letter S added on. Our examples: buy becomes buys, say becomes says, play becomes plays, and enjoy becomes enjoys. Now, in describing our adverbs of frequency, we often use adverbs of frequency with the present simple tense. We have several examples here. If something happens 0% of the time, we say it never happened. Now, we often use the present simple with our adverbs of frequency. If something happens 0% of the time, we say it never happens. If something happens maybe 10 to 20% of the time, we can say it rarely happens. If something happens 30 to 40% of the time, we can say it does not happen often. If it happens about half the time, we'll say it happens sometimes. If it happens 60 to 70% of the time, we'll say it happens often. If something happens 80 to 90% of the time, we'll say it usually happens. And if something happens 100% of the time, we would say it always happens. Now, we have some examples here. We have, they go before, these go before the main verb. These adverbs of frequency, but after the verb be. So, we have some examples here. We have, I usually start school at 9 a.m. Mr. Gregory, can you please read our next example?
They are usually in a hurry in the morning.
Yes, very good. Mr. Paul, can you please read our next example?
I don't often go to bed late.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory, our next example?
I'm not often late for school.
Thank you. And Mr. Paul, our next example?
She never eats meat.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory, our next example?
He's never late.
Thank you. Mr. Paul, our next example?
I rarely see Peter these days.
Thank you. And Mr. Gregory, our final example?
We're rarely at home at the weekends.
Thank you very much. Now we have sometimes and usually can also go at the beginning or the end of a sentence. Mr. Gregory, can you please read sentence 1?
Sometimes we play football.
Thank you. Mr. Paul, example 2.
We play football sometimes.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory, example 3.
Usually I go shopping with friends.
Thank you. And Mr. Paul, our final example.
I go shopping with friends usually.
Outstanding. Now, never, always, rarely, and seldom cannot move in this way. You would never say, never I go to the shopping mall. You would have to say, I never go to the shopping mall. You would never say, always I have tea in the morning. You would say, I always have tea in the morning. Every day would go at the end of a sentence. For example, he phones me every night. She phones me every day. Anything of that nature. Now we have our present continuous tense. Well, let's look over our form first. We have a positive and a negative here. Mr. Paul, if I want to make a sentence in the present continuous tense with I, either the positive or negative, you select, and a verb, how would I do that?
I'm eating.
Aha! I'm eating. It's happening right now. Eating. Mr. Gregory. If I wanted to make a sentence in the positive with he, she, or it in eating, how would I do that?
It's eating.
It's eating. Perfect. Mr. Paul, if I wanted to make a sentence with a pronoun we, you, or they in the negative with eating, how would I do that?
We aren't eating.
We aren't eating. Yes, perfect. And now, if I want to make a question with the continuous using the pronoun I, how do I do that? Mr. Gregory, go ahead.
What am I doing?
What am I doing? Yes. Mr. Paul, if I want to use the pronoun we in the continuous for doing, how do I do that?
What are we doing?
What are we doing? Yes. And now we have an example with our short answer. Are you going by train? Yes, I am. Or no, I'm not. I do see going in your continuous. Now, we use the present continuous to express an activity that is happening now. So, we have an example here. Mr. Gregory, please read it for us.
Don't turn the TV off. I'm watching it.
Right. I am currently watching television. So we say, I'm watching it. Mr. Paul,
Yes.
please tell us about our second example.
You can't speak to Lisa. She's having a bath.
Right. Having a bath at this very moment, she is in the bathtub. That's what she's doing right now. We can also use the present continuous for an activity or situation that is true now, but not necessarily happening at the moment of speaking. So, Mr. Gregory, please read our example.
Don't take that book. Jane's reading it.
Right. Don't take that book, Jane's reading it. May not be reading that book at the exact instant of this statement, but it's something that she's been reading maybe day after day for the past week. she may have a few more chapters left. So you can still say she is reading it. Mr. Paul, our next example, please.
I'm doing a French evening class this year.
You say, I'm doing this class, does not necessarily mean you're in the classroom right now, but week after week you'll be attending these classes. You can say, I'm doing in the continuous. The continuous can also be used for a temporary activity. Mr. Gregory, please read our example.
Peter is a student, but he's working as a waiter during the holidays.
Right. Peter is a student, but he's working as a waiter during the holidays. So maybe he has a 3 or 4 week break between his fall and spring semester. So for those 3 or 4 weeks, when he has more free time, he doesn't have tests to take, he is temporarily working as a waiter. And Mr. Paul, please read our next example.
I'm living with my parents until I find a place of my own.
Perfect. I'm living with my parents until I find a place of my own. So maybe I'm currently house hunting. I'm looking at different homes all week long, maybe for 2 weeks. So I'm going to be staying at my parents' home while I'm looking for something that's right for myself. We can also use the continuous for a planned future arrangement. Mr. Gregory, please read for us.
I'm having lunch with Glenda tomorrow.
Aha, I'm having lunch with Glenda tomorrow. This does not necessarily mean I have lunch with Glenda daily or even on a regular weekly basis. It's something I'm planning to do just tomorrow. Now, Mr. Gregory, how about our next example?
We are meeting at 1 o'clock outside the restaurant.
Yes, we're meeting at 1 o'clock outside the restaurant. Once again, this is just what we're doing today. This does not necessarily mean we meet every day at 1, or every Monday at 1, or the first of every month at 1. It's what we're going to be doing in this near future, one-time only plan. Now, for the spelling of the verb plus ing, most verbs add ing to the base of the verb. We have some examples here. Going, wearing, visiting, and eating. For verbs that end in one E, we end up losing the E. So have becomes having, come becomes coming, hope becomes hoping, write becomes writing. For verbs that end with 2 E's, you do not need to drop either E. So agree becomes agreeing without losing that E. See becomes seeing without losing that E. But here we have a difficult one. Lie becomes lying. Our IE becomes a Y. There are certain groups of verbs that are usually only used in the present simple. This is because their meanings are related to states or conditions that are facts and activities. This is a feature of the use of the present simple. The groups of verbs are as follows. Verbs that have to do with thinking and opinion. So we have several examples here. Believe, think, understand, suppose, expect. Agree, doubt, know, remember, forget. Mean, imagine, realize, deserve, and prefer. Mr. Paul, what is our first example here?
I believe you.
I believe you, yes. Mr. Gregory, our next example.
Do you understand?
Do you understand? Yes. And Mr. Paul, our third example.
I know his face, but I forget his name.
Very good. Now, we can also use our present simple with verbs of emotions and feelings. Our example are like love, hate, care, hope, wish, want, admit. Now, Mr. Gregory, please go to our first example.
I like black coffee.
I like black coffee. Very good. Mr. Paul, our next example.
Do you want to go out?
Very good. And Mr. Gregory, our third example.
I don't care.
Very good. Then we can also use our present simple with verbs of having and being. Our examples are belong, own, have, possess, contain, cost, seem, appear, need, depend on, weigh, come from, and resemble. Now, Mr. Paul, what is our first example here?
This book belongs to Jane.
Very good. Mr. Gregory, next example.
How much does it cost?
Very good. Mr. Paul, our third example.
He has a lot of money.
Very good. We can also use our present simple with verbs of the senses. We have look, hear, taste, smell, and feel. Mr. Paul, what is our first example?
The food smells good.
Very good. We often use can when the subject is a person. Mr. Gregory, please give our example.
Can you smell something burning?
Very good. And Mr. Paul, our second example.
I can hear someone crying.
Very good. Now, some of these verbs can be used in the present continuous with a change of meaning. So, in the continuous, the verb expresses activity, not a state. We have some comparisons here, right? I think you're right. Think is an opinion, or we're thinking of going to the library. Here, thinking is not an opinion about the library, it's the mental activity.
What does that mean, teacher? Mental activity.
It is the fact that you're considering going to the library, right? You might go to the library, you might not go to the library, you're considering it, right? Now, he has a lot of money. Here, has is showing possession, right? He possesses that money, it's his. She's having a bad day. Here, having is an activity, right? Today, some bad things are happening to her. The act of bad things happening are being perpetrated against her. I see what you mean. Here, see means understand.
Excuse me, teacher.
Yes.
I think that's difficult because I don't understand. Because how is see understand? How can I know what that means? You have the word mean. Understand.
In this case, you have to look at your context, right? If I were to say, I see what you mean. Here the word see means understand. This is sort of like a figure of speech in English. I see what you mean. I understand.
Oh, I see what you mean, teacher.
Right. Very good. Are you seeing Nigel tomorrow? Here, seeing is an activity, right? Will you spend time with Nigel tomorrow? So, you have to just memorize these varied meanings of the word see. See could be something that you actually view with your eyes. Could be something that you understand. It could be an activity in which you're engaging. You have to look at the context of the sentence around that word to figure out which meaning of see is being used. This is one of the fun things about the English language. Many words have second and third and fourth and fifth definitions. You get to utilize your context to understand which definition of that word applies.
So here seeing means meeting or visiting, does
It
it?
is, yes, the activity of spending time with him tomorrow. It doesn't necessarily mean just looking at him and then having that be the end of your activity concerning him. This is more like the activity of being with him. right? You're going on a date with him, you're having lunch with him, you're having dinner with him, or something of that nature, right? Are you seeing him? Are you going to be able to spend time with him? Not necessarily are you going to look at him and then walk away. Okay? The soup tastes awful. Here, we're talking about the state of the soup, right? It's awful. I'm tasting the soup to see if it needs salt. Here we're talking about the actual activity of tasting soup, right? Have a sip of the soup, doesn't need salt, doesn't need pepper, doesn't need oregano, doesn't need any other spice, okay?
So, does taste mean a state verb, and tasting is an actual activity taking place?
In this context, yes. So, taste is the state of the soup, right? How is it right now? Well, it's awful, okay? I'm tasting it right now. That doesn't necessarily mean it is an awful bowl of soup. It just means I'm going to try it to see if it needs some kind of change. This now concludes our lesson. Thank you very much for being a part of this lesson. Do we have any questions?
No, thank you, teacher.
Thank you, teacher.
Very good.